Hello everybody. A few years ago I declared the E63 Generation BMW 650i the ultimate used BMW bargain, and in the last few years nothing has happened to change my mind. If anything, I think these cars have only begun to age even better, and today I'm back in another 650i, this time a much later convertible, because I believe this could be the best car you can buy, certainly when the weather is like this, for £10,000 or a lot less. Don't agree with me? Well, listen to my argument and then hit the comment section and we'll have it out. The second generation 6 Series came from that glorious period where innovation from car manufacturers didn't simply mean a new and interesting form of totally and completely useless crossover SUV. Instead, what BMW wanted to do with the 6 Series was reintroduce the idea of a proper old school Grand Tourer, the kind of car that would happily whisk you and your luggage 1,000 miles or two across the continent in comfort, luxury and at a fair old lick too. And when this car was launched 20 years ago now, back in 2003, that was still a fairly viable thing. Speed limits were nowhere near as oppressive or well patrolled as they are now, and even your local gendarmerie over in France didn't really have a big problem with you doing the ton all the way down to Le Mans. However, the joy of a car like this for me is the fact you don't need to do that in order to be able to experience what makes it quite so wonderful. Before we get onto the nitty-gritty, a potted history of the 6 Series. As mentioned, the model debuted in 2003 as the 645ci, and it really is an indication of just how long ago that was that BMW could introduce a new model with just a 4.4 litre naturally aspirated V8 engine. There was at the time nothing else. A year after, in 2004, the convertible then made an appearance, and a year later, in 2005, we then also got the lower powered 630ci with the venerable N52 straight 6, a fabulous engine, though potentially a little bit underpowered in a nice large luxury Grand Tourer such as this. And of course you then had the one that everybody wants, the range-topping M6, packing the same 5 litre naturally aspirated V10 as the M5 of the day, with 500 horsepower and a generally unloved 7-speed SMG gearbox in most markets. In America, you could get a manual, though not that many people did. Then, in 2006, the 645ci became the 650i. Note, not only did the engine grow in both size and power from 4.4 litres and 330 horsepower to 4.8 litres and 360, but also the C was dropped. Presumably because with the 6 Series it was entirely unnecessary. In other model lines, C designated a coupe, but as they all were, you just didn't need it. The Grand Coupe was for the second generation, or I suppose I should call it third generation 6 Series that followed on from this. In 2007, the model was then facelifted, and actually quite a few things happened. The interior was given a bit of a refresh and is more different than you might expect, but on the outside it was a fairly subtle affair. The easiest way to tell are some of the lights and strips are a little bit wider, but honestly, even a keen BMW fan would be easily forgiven for mistaking the two. The last change of note then also came in 2007 with the adoption of a third generation version of BMW's iDrive system. This example I'm driving today is a spectacular example of a 2010 car, so it has all the updates, all the upgrades, and as a 650 Sport, this to me could be the best of the whole bunch. Though everybody wants the M6, the fact is they are well known for being particularly expensive to run, and truth be told, I've always suspected that unless you were really on it, these probably perform nearly as well anyway. The reason being that though yes, the headline power figure of the M is much higher, 500 horses versus 360, it's not anywhere near the same for torque. The M6 makes 384 pound-foot, and this just over 360, in either case around the 500 Newton-meter mark. But more significantly is the fact that where peak torque for the M6 comes in at around 6,000 RPM, in here it's near 3,000 RPM lower, meaning this is an engine that doesn't require quite as much effort to get the best from it. This car, being a sport variant, also has a few extra touches. It has some lovely wheels that really do suit the car quite well. It's also got a mildly fruitier exhaust, which it really does benefit from, because as standard these cars were simply far too quiet. And you've got a different design of bonnet too, with a couple of creases in that even the M6 did not get, and today I'm told they're considered a highly prized item. You also have a retuned suspension and gearbox, meaning this should be a slightly sportier driving experience. Roof down, of course, visibility is also excellent, though roof up it is a little bit compromised, and in fairness it also was in the coupe. They're big cars, and in the odd car park they can feel a little bit daunting. Unfortunately, the white BMW ahead, who is insisting on doing half the speed limit, means I'm going to have to wait a little bit to see just how sporty this car can be. But in the interim, I want to talk you through some of the other things that have always made the 6 Series quite a special car. Mechanically speaking, these are very closely related to the E60 Generation 5 Series, being essentially a shortened version of the same thing. And that is only a very good thing, because the E60 was an excellent platform, featuring plenty of aluminium throughout its construction. It's worth noting that the generation of 6 Series that replaced this was considerably heavier, because like the 5 Series, it moved from a largely aluminium construction to a largely steel one, and so put on a fair bit of weight. These convertibles are porkier than the coupe. Those are about 1,700 odd kilos, these more like 1,900. So not exactly light, but also lighter than the cars that followed. Another thing telling you just how different that era was, it was only in 2007 the car even got any form of diesel option, the 635D. The first 4 years of production, it was petrol only. In keeping with its upmarket image, the 6 Series was also priced higher than the 5, sitting, as you would imagine, between the 5 and the 7. Right, we've got our clear bit of road, so Sport button has been pressed, gearbox shifted over, first into Sport, but I'm going to use the manual mode with these little steering wheel mounted shifters up here. Oh, they both go both directions. Oh, I don't like that at all. I thought I was going to like those, but I don't. In fact, I'm going to use the lever down here, and you know what? We got loads and loads of space. Let's see what she'll do. I am really impressed with that gearbox. It is an old ZF 6-speed auto, but this I think is the fastest and most responsive I've ever had that gearbox be. It's better even, dare I say it, than in the Maseratis of the time, and that's a bold claim because they're pretty good already. Oh, lovely. The engine, though decent and here making just the right amount of noise, you put your foot down and you can hear it, is struggling a little bit. In the coupe, it's more than adequate, but here in the convertible, 360 horsepower and I think more pressingly 360 pound-foot to drag near 2 tons, it's not quite enough. But it's plenty to have fun. The car doesn't feel anemic for sure. Oh, and that sort of stuff there, it's just marvellous. The steering has a little bit more weight than you would expect too, and though it's not particularly communicative in classic BMW style, you still get that feel of piloting something nice and chunky down the road. It is really how a car like this should be. And one thing about the 6 Series that I've always loved, they were, as you would expect, pricier than the 5 Series, being really halfway between a 5 and a 7. To that end, quite a lot of effort was put into making these feel like a more upmarket product, and it really, really worked. First off, you have an incredible array of technology in what is essentially, well, if you want to call it a 20-year-old car, you could, but even being more generous, a 13-year-old car. There's loads here. Front and rear parking sensors with a little readout up here to show you where your potential hazards are. Radar guided cruise control. You've got soft closed doors. You've got this wonderful iDrive system that even today is actually a joy to use. It's got a hard drive for music, USB sockets, you've got an aux in, Bluetooth, nav, everything. It's absolutely sensational. The extra buttons that the later generation got down here do make it a little bit easier to use, a little bit less daunting for those that aren't quite so tech focused, and it's a fabulous thing. And the roof mechanism too is really, really quite slick. In fact, let's just see what the car's like roof up. You can operate it at low speeds, so going too fast at the minute. Yep, sub 20 mile an hour, you can do it, and hopefully it won't hit a camera. Yep, there we go. Even roof down, you've got plenty of boot space in this car, though roof up you do get a tiny bit more. You don't really realise it when you first open the boot, but it actually goes quite some way, essentially the same depth as in the coupe. Now, roof on, it feels like a proper coupe, this thing. Nice, proper lining, very calm, very quiet. Slightly weird, actually, driving this car now with the roof up, and it's a fabulous thing to be in. At all times, you do notice an element of scuttle shake, which is a little bit disappointing. It's not horrible, it's not tragic, it's not anywhere near as bad as many, many other cars I've driven, including ones from more premium manufacturers. The Maserati Spider, I think, is thus far just about the worst car I've ever driven in terms of that, but it is there. However, this being a sort of more cruisery type thing, it's not really the deal breaker that you might expect. Particularly demanding roads might see it shake around a little more than you'd like, particularly if you're buying this new and paying full up for it, but as a used purchase, I think I can just about look past it. I'd still probably be more tempted to go for a coupe, but there is a lot to be said for these convertibles, including the fact that provided nobody is particularly tall, it is definitely possible to get people in the rear. In the coupe, I used to get my mum, my nan in there to go out to the pub and whatnot with ease. They actually quite liked it because you've got these really sculpted, buckety seats. They felt comfortable in them. And I definitely think my friend Ben over at Dad Cars should get one of these on his channel soon, because as a potential dad wagon, they're also excellent. The combination of the very usable back seats and the big boot, I think, means if you do have kids or you want to take the car on a long trip, it's perfect for it. In fact, I recall when I had my 6 Series, I went to go and look at an Aston Martin because my dad was thinking of buying one, and I was just flummoxed by the fact that the Aston seemed to be just as long as my 6 Series, but didn't have, I think, even a third of the boot space. Could never quite understand that. Nowadays, I know the reason for that is that Aston Martin put the gearbox and various other things at the back of the car, and they're built in a very, very different way with better weight distribution and all that jazz. But at the time, I just thought Aston were being lazy. As we're still in town, I'm going to take the opportunity to drop the roof once again. The bloke in the big Ford pickup behind is no doubt going to be very confused at the chap posing and showing off his roof in front of him. There are actually 2 wind deflectors for this car, the sort of integrated one, which is essentially the back window, which can also be lowered when the roof is in place for a little bit of extra acoustics. And there is also one you can insert manually that I don't have because honestly, you don't need it. Even windows all down, wind noise in here is actually not that bad at all. And I have to talk about this particular example because I have to say this is a fabulous demonstration of just how good a BMW can really be. Take all the things I've already said, which apply to just about every 650, but on top of that, you've got this gorgeous azurite blue paintwork. Oh, is that a Lexus or an Aston? It's a DB11, just pulled out in front. Put his foot down too, nice. Anyway, you've got this azurite blue paintwork, and inside this full leather, combining both dark and light. And you've also got extra touches like the fully covered center console here in light leather, which looks absolutely amazing. Oh, and the armrest, that's cool as well. I mean, this is standard, the leather cover isn't, but the armrest itself is, and it's got a little feature where you can just set it in different positions. Little details like that really mark the 6 Series out. The rear lights, same thing. They've got little ridges in them because in the wind tunnel, when they were developing this car, they found out that the rear lights needed a little bit of something just to smooth off the airflow. That's fabulous. The depth and attention that BMW put into developing this car was fantastic, and it came from that era where they were still doing a lot old school, building full-size models, all that sort of stuff. And I know these cars always got a lot of grief for the way they look, but honestly, from the front, they were always brilliant. The rear, though, was just odd because it looked like they just grafted a 5 Series back end onto a fairly decent-looking convertible. I actually don't mind it, partly because it gave you that enormous boot, and that's one of the reasons I had a 6 Series as a younger man, because it didn't look like a car that would have lots and lots of stuff in the back. But it did. And one thing I'll actually say for the convertible is that though roof up, it does still have slightly odd looks. The shape of the roof itself, I think, actually is really marvellous. They've sort of still kept these buttresses on it, and it's a fantastic looking thing, but I'm just not a fan of soft tops. However, roof down, the rear kind of works because it then maintains that sort of same belt line the whole way through. It's a handsome devil. I'm going to say it. It's a handsome looking thing, the 6 Series convertible. But this one, full leather interior, even this dash, little details everywhere, the stitching, all this, it really does make this feel like a properly nice car. Easily as good, I would say, as many things Italian. Yeah, that's a lot. Up to the national speed limit, this car has ample performance. And one of the reasons that this car's owner, Adrian, has got it is that after having a string of other 6s, including an M, he realised that, you know what, though the M is great and lovely and very, very fast, it's also a car that eggs you on quite a bit. And because it masks its speed so well, particularly in coupe guys, you can easily do license-losing speeds without really even knowing it. And I have experienced that in a few different cars. You put your foot down and go, oh, not going that quick, am I? Oh, crikey, yes, I am. And that, he just thinks is, well, counterintuitive. You want to feel like you're going faster when you're going slower rather than the other way around. There's a lot to be said for that. And this does that. 50, 60 mile an hour feels just right. I'm having a great time in this car. And it's just quality, the whole thing. From the lovely doors you don't even need to slam because they've got the soft close, to the fact that all the buttons do feel nice and they all work, to the little touches like the armrest and the admittedly hilarious cup holder, because they evidently designed this car and someone obviously sat down in it and went, cool, where's the cup holder? And they all went, crumbs. So it's a detachable piece that goes there and can be removed if it's interfering with your passenger's leg. Perfect. Just spot on. Then when you lift off, it vanishes into the background. Lovely. Fuel economy, I'm sure you're all desperate to know about that. Well, it's been averaging 22.6. And as an average, I'd say it's fairly accurate. On a run, you can do a little bit better out of these. In the coupe, you get close to 30. But not actually 30, but you get close, which for what these are, I think is very, very good. The coupe was available with a sunroof, as mine had, but annoyingly it only sort of lifted up. It didn't open properly, and they have a tendency to rattle quite a bit. This, meanwhile, is entirely free of creaks, squeaks, and everything else. In fact, one of the sounds that it does make comes courtesy of the individual stereo, sat even above the Harman Kardon and Logic 7 systems of the time. This is a nice looking unit, and though it's not going to blow any audiophile away, it's pretty darn good. Even roof down, it makes more than enough noise and of the right type as well. I like it. At 4.8 metres long and just over 1.8 metres wide, it's not a small car, but compared to many other things I've now driven, it's not all that bad, and it does at least justify its size by having the semi-usable rear seats. The car's even had the option of active anti-roll bars, a technology taken from the 7 Series of the time. And yes, the 6 Series is a car that has gained a reputation for being somewhat expensive to keep going. Even little things like the fact that some of the lights at the back require the bumper to come off in order to be replaced. BMW never considered anyone having to run one of these on a tight budget. The engines, particularly the V8s, are also prolific for leaking just about anything from anywhere. The biggest culprit being the fabled coolant hose that runs between the V, and where once upon a time that was an engine out 2 days labour job, nowadays there are some aftermarket solutions, but still budget on a good grand or two to get that sorted. The active anti-roll bars also, if the car has them, are known to play up and various electronic issues can appear, but if one of these has been well maintained, they will look after you. Mine I had for 15,000 miles and it never put a foot wrong. I would today seek out an example that has been enthusiast owned, has been serviced at shorter intervals than that BMW recommended. They wanted, I think, between 15 and 20,000 miles. The car would work it out, but realistically 10,000 is generally regarded as being a bit better. Though I know the purists out there would always want one of these with a manual gearbox. The fact is, they're very rare. Chances are it's going to be in a lower specified car, and most likely with the 630i engine. And from the people I spoke to, the gearbox in these never was all that great. They just weren't designed for them. The Auto, particularly this later Sport automatic transmission, is an absolutely perfect partner for the car, and the one that you really do need to avoid is the SMG. And before you start typing, but James, that's only in the M6 anyway, no, it's not. A very easily forgotten fact, but at the time, BMW did like to offer the SMG box in regular cars too. The E46 you could have had a manual, an automatic, or an SMG, and same for these. You do spot one every now and again, and I'd love to have been a fly on the wall when some poor sucker got told that the SMG box was the one that he definitely wanted. Maybe they thought they were going to get a cut price M6, I really don't know. But as we're talking about price, let's discuss what is, and has for a long time been, the best bit about the 6 Series. This is a huge amount of car. This in here feels like every one of the £70,000 that it probably was when it was new. It drives wonderfully. No, it's not the last word in dynamics and refinement, but it's got that glorious combination of feeling like it's genuinely been built really well in the old school BMW tradition, is interesting and exciting enough to drive to put a smile on your face, has luxury technology and features, but none of them feel particularly overbearing. Let's test the turning circle. That's not great, but are you surprised? And I think this is also a car that has really grown into its looks. Put a number plate on this and people would struggle to guess how old it really is. They don't feel like a 20-year-old car to me. But a few years ago, you could pick one of these up for a few £1,000s, and shockingly, nothing has changed. Nothing whatsoever. At the bottom end of the market, you could pick up a 6 Series for about £3,000. But spend another few thousand, say 6 or 7, and you've got a great selection of later model facelift 650s at your disposal, with only the most special, lowest mile and rare examples, or those simply at very, very optimistic dealers, being over 10. Something like this would probably sell now for, I don't know, £14,000 maybe? And the truth is, even at, let's call it £15,000, this one I'm driving today, worth every single penny. No, it's not an M car, but it won't cost as much as an M car to run. It still puts a big smile on my face, and where in an M car I'd be much more annoyed at the slight scuttle shake, the slightly iffy steering, and some of the dynamics, in here it's more than capable, it's more than competent, it does what I need it to, and it just puts a smile on your face. It really does. I drove a Peugeot 308cc the other day, and I said very nice things about that, and it deserved them. But a nice one of those is £5,000. and you get one of these for that. Yeah, I think I'd risk the extra running cost of the BMW, and I'm sure you would as well. It feels like sometimes every 6 weeks I go into the classifieds looking at what 6 Series prices are doing, and every single time I'm shocked they haven't gone back up. E46 prices have rocketed. These, more rare, more special, better put together, more features. Okay, you're probably going to argue the better put together, but it's a fantastic thing for just no money whatsoever. And now I think I might start to include convertibles in my search too, because though it's certainly flawed, I'm not entirely sure that I care. And so, there we have it. I think this remains one of the best BMWs ever made, and is certainly one of the best value cars of any kind on sale in Britain today. This is the E63 and E64 Generation BMW 6 Series. We mocked it when it was new, but like the smart car and the X5 I've also driven this week, I don't think it deserved anywhere near as much hate as we gave it. I want to say a huge thank you to Adrian for bringing this car out, and as ever, to you for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye-bye.